Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and the DCEU is about to get rebooted with The Flash. So, to get us ready for that reboot, and more importantly for the Flash film itself, we are going to take a look back at the Flash's key moments from the DCEU, as well as some other DC Multiverse characters that we'll be meeting along the way, such as Michael Keaton's Batman.
Yeah. I'm Batman.
So, the DCEU kicked off with 2013's Man of Steel, a new Superman origin story starring Henry Cavill as the son of Krypton himself, Superman. Krypton is dying, a character by the name of General Zod, who we'll be seeing again in The Flash. He and his lackeys warned the people of Krypton about the impending doom and destruction of their planet. But they took the tyrant approach to saving the day and attempted to overthrow the whole world. They were then captured and banished from Krypton.
I will find him!
We then see little baby Kal-El sent to Earth, where he is raised by humans under the name Clark Kent. He finds out he has super abilities because of how his cells interact with the Earth's sun, and voila, you got Superman. We then see Zod and his crew roll up on Earth intent on conquering the planet, killing all the humans, and turning the Earth into the new Krypton. A big battle takes place, buildings explode, and Superman saves the day, becoming a symbol of hope to the world, just like the S on his chest. Now, from the trailers, it looks like we're going to see this same invasion take place in The Flash when he travels back in time to 2013. Only this time, Superman is not there to save the day, but there is a Supergirl. In Man of Steel, we actually got a reference to Kara Zor-El, aka Supergirl. Director of Man of Steel, Zack Snyder, has confirmed that Kara was on this Kryptonian ship that arrived on Earth before Superman, and that this busted open pod door was Kara's pod. And actually, if I can throw out a recommendation, if you like epic stories, then you would love this new animated series called Raid, Call of the Arbiter.
Oh, what is it?
Well, it's a new, free-to-watch, animated limited series from Raid Shadow Legends, the sponsor of this video, and this show is really good. Whether you play Raid Shadow Legends or not, it's a really fun watch. I did not expect to get sucked in, but I did. So, the first 3 episodes, they're about 6 minutes each, are chapters that tell the story of different Raid champions. They all rebel against their factions in some way. Galek has a crisis of conscience and saves a baby Aethel, Kale has forbidden love, and episode 3 ends on a huge cliffhanger, and I actually can't wait for episode 4. The show reminds me a lot of like Avatar: The Last Airbender, but way more dark. Now, you can actually watch the series for free in-game with new episodes coming out every Thursday until July 20th. I mean, it's really good with millions of views and thousands of positive comments. I never really cared about the story of Raid, but the animated series is very engaging and it makes the gameplay more rich. Kind of like when I watched the Mario movie, the series just made me want to play the game. So the game has launched a ton of Call of the Arbiter related features with new champions, more lore connected to the series, and a bunch of activities. The series gives you a great way to find out what the heck all of these Raid ads are even talking about. For instance, everybody will get the chance to get Artak, one of the few 5 new characters from the show, as a playable legendary champion for free just by logging into Raid for 7 days between now and July 24th. And if you haven't started playing Raid yet, use my link in the description or scan this QR code to get some insane bonuses. We're talking about epic champion Drake and other cool bonus content. Once you're in, find me under the name Rise Anonymous and let's join a clan together. So just hit my link in the description and I'll see you on the battlefield. Next we have Batman v Superman, a movie that promised the smackdown of the century between the 2 biggest superheroes ever created, but you know, for some like me, didn't exactly deliver.
Save Martha! Why did you say that name?
Martha.
This movie gave us our first introduction to Ezra Miller's Flash. We see Barry Allen with this really weird and random nightmare scene that Snyder fans can't seem to let go of.
Oh, you made him all mad now.
I said what I said. Anyways, using his ability to travel through time, Flash runs back in time to warn Bruce that he's supposedly right about Superman being dangerous and that Lois Lane is the key to stopping him. This teases an apocalyptic future where Darkseid invades Earth and Superman turns bad after the death of Lois and his unborn child. And don't get me wrong, it looks really cool, but it just felt really random and out of place and was ultimately abandoned until the release of Zack Snyder's The Justice League, but more on that in just a bit. By the way, our buddy Heavy Spoilers actually has a great video breaking down the Nightmare timeline if you want to check that out. He could really use the views. And then, later in the film, while looking at a flash drive of information that Bruce Wayne stole from the Superman villain Lex Luthor, we get a glimpse of all the DCEU heroes to come, accompanied by their very own photoshopped logos.
And logos. Really long and dramatic logos.
In the security cam footage, we see Barry in a convenience store stopping a robbery. Next, we have Suicide Squad, the bad one, not the good one by James Gunn. Now, this film really isn't a must-watch in order to see The Flash, but Flash actually does have a cameo in this movie, so I thought it was worth mentioning. One of the Flash's classic comic book foes, Captain Boomerang, had a big part to play in 2016's The Suicide Squad. While Amanda Waller is giving us a breakdown of the team of imprisoned villains, we learned that Captain Boomerang was captured by Flash while he was trying to rob a bank. And then we have Justice League, the theatrical version.
It's that one. It's the shitty one.
That's the shitty one?
Yes, sir.
The theatrical version of Justice League was our first chance to really get to see Ezra Miller in action as Barry Allen and the Flash. After Superman dies at the hands of Doomsday in Batman v Superman, Bruce Wayne is now looking for other metahumans to help him protect the planet.
Silica-based quartz sand fabric, abrasion resistant, heat resistant. It's what they use on the space shuttle to prevent it from burning up on re-entry.
Bruce hands Barry a piece of paper with a screenshot of the security cam footage from BVS.
A piece of paper? Like printed out? I mean, Bruce Wayne's a billionaire with a Batcave full of advanced technology. Why didn't you just show Barry yet a video of him using his powers like on a holographic tablet or something like that?
Cause this movie's gritty and realistic.
Yeah, fair enough, I guess.
And Bruce barely has to say anything before Barry agrees to join the team.
Putting together a team, people with special abilities. You see, I believe enemies are coming.
Stop right there. I'm in.
And I think that's important to keep in mind because it's been confirmed that Batman and the Flash have a pretty close working relationship in the Flash movie.
Passing you into Mr. Wayne.
No, please don't.
I need you here now, Barry.
Bruce and Barry's relationship is really similar to Tony Stark and Peter Parker's relationship in the MCU. It's also in this scene where Barry and Bruce meet for the first time that we hear reference to the Speed Force and its effects on time and reality.
It's like this layer of dimensional reality, and it seems to manipulate space-time. I call it the Speed Force.
Now, this film has a lot of issues, like a lot. We've made some of my favorite videos on this channel basically dunking on the Justice League. But I will give it props for successfully introducing Flash as a character without first having an origin film. We learned about his need for a high-calorie intake in order to use his speedster powers. We also learned a lot about Flash's situation with his father, a very important piece of information for the Flash movie. In Justice League, we learned that, like in the comics, Flash's dad is in prison for the murder of his wife, that's Barry's mother. But Barry knows his father isn't guilty and has dedicated his life to proving his father's innocence.
I didn't kill my wife. I don't care.
At the end of the Justice League, we even see Barry get a job at a crime lab. Okay, so that's the theatrical cut of Justice League, but the Snyder cut of the Justice League has even more important info for the Flash, and is actually the first time we see Barry use time travel. After the Justice League fails to keep the MacGuffin boxes from sinking, we see Flash do this. We hear Barry say to himself,
Just gotta go faster than the speed of light, far beyond the speed of light. Gotta break the rule, Barry, and you gotta do it now.
This implies that Barry is aware of his ability to reverse time, as well as the dangers of messing with time. And really, what we're seeing here isn't so much time travel as it is time reversal.
What's the difference?
Well, traveling back in time to prevent something from happening would theoretically result in you meeting your past self, like we'll see happen in the Flash movie. But what we're seeing happen here is Barry is actually reversing the flow of time, causing time to physically rewind, sort of like how we've seen the Time Stone work in the MCU. After Wanda destroys the Mind Stone to prevent Thanos from getting it, we don't see Thanos travel back in time to a variant timeline to get the Mind Stone. No, we see him physically reverse the flow of time, which reforms the Mind Stone. We saw this done in the 1978 Superman film as well. We saw Superman travel faster than the speed of light, causing time to start flowing in reverse and resurrecting Lois Lane.
Time travel.
And Zack Snyder has made a point to differentiate between the two and has said that Barry's time reversal was meant to eventually evolve into time travel, setting up the Flash film. In fact, we got this line from Barry in the Snyder Cut where he says this.
Make your own future. Make your own past.
So I think it's safe to say that this scene was originally meant to set up the Flash film and be the moment that Barry realized that he could travel back in time and save his mom. And another thing from the Snyder Cut that will be carrying over to the Flash movie is the character of Iris West. In the comics, Iris West is the MJ to Barry Allen's Peter Parker, the Lois Lane to his Clark Kent, the Pepper Potts to his...
Oh, we get it. They like each other.
She was cut from the theatrical version of the Justice League, but we finally got to see her in the Snyder Cut when Barry saves her life. Now, next we have some Flash cameos. In the non-DCEU Arrowverse, that universe consists of shows like Arrow, Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, and lots of other really cool shows. So, in the 2019 Crisis on Infinite Earths crossover event, we saw Ezra Miller's Flash meet Grant Gustin's Flash. We hear Movie Barry say,
I told Victor this was possible.
Victor being Cyborg, who we know Barry has a pretty good friendship with. This scene implies that the DCEU Barry has been thinking about the possibility of there being a multiverse and his ability to travel through it. Since the Arrowverse has officially ended with the Flash's final episode,
Good night, sweet prince.
we have no idea if this meeting with Grant Gustin is even going to be considered canon, but it could be. I mean, maybe this encounter is one of the things that made Barry aware that he actually has abilities that he's yet to tap into.
It seems freaking comfy. Yours is pretty cool.
Smooth.
Seems safe and
breathable.
And I should also mention that we've never actually heard Barry referred to as the Flash in the DCEU. And it's actually in this scene with Grant Gustin that we see Ezra Miller's Barry Allen hear the name
the Flash.
Flash.
Next in the realm of cameos, we have the hit series Peacemaker, made by the new DC leader, James Gunn.
Go frank another fish, asshole.
I'm so sick of that rumor.
It's not a rumor.
Thank you, Barry.
And lastly, we get a brief mention of Flash in Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
There's already a superhero with a red suit with a lightning bolt on it, and I'm fast, but he's faster.
Okay, so that's the history of the DCEU Flash, but we're not even close to done. Next, we need to get nuts and talk about Michael Keaton's Batman.
Now you want to get nuts? Come on!
Let's get nuts.
1989's Batman was directed by Tim Burton and was really the world's first dark comic book movie. Michael Keaton is playing a Year One style Batman. Now, while it's not an origin film in the same way that Batman Begins was, you know, a movie where we don't see the Batman suit until like an hour in, Batman 89 still shows us a relatively new Batman.
I want you to tell all your friends about me.
What are you?
I'm Batman.
He's still mostly unknown and is just starting to make his name known on the streets of Gotham. In typical Dark Knight fashion, we see Bruce still struggling with the loss of his parents in that alleyway all those years ago. And it turns out that the Joker, before he was the Joker, was actually the robber that killed them. His name was Jack Napier and he was your common crime boss. After an altercation with Batman, we see him fall into a vat of chemicals, disfiguring his outer appearance and corrupting his mind even further. In this moment, Batman inadvertently created the Joker. Just like all those years ago, the Joker inadvertently created Batman.
You made me. Remember? I made you. You made me first.
And while his Joker portrayal isn't my favorite, obviously that goes to Heath Ledger, Jack Nicholson's take on the character is still a lot of fun.
Wait till they get a load of me.
In the sequel, Batman Returns, we see Keaton and Burton both return along with Danny DeVito's Penguin and Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman.
Meow.
Here we get to see Batman take on his classic detective role like in the comics. And we also see Bruce struggling with balancing his personal life and his hero life. And that's one of my favorite things about Batman, and they execute it really well in this movie. Bruce Wayne became Batman because he had experienced a great tragedy, hated his life, and sought to deliver justice to criminals like the one who killed his parents. In reality, Batman is who Bruce really is. The Bruce Wayne persona is the mask.
Bruce Wayne? Why are you dressed up like Batman?
Because he is Batman, you moron.
But Bruce's relationship with Selina Kyle causes him to have a rift with himself and his double life. He's even willing to stop being Batman so he can be with Selina. And one of the things I really love about this film is that the juxtaposition between Bruce Wayne's Batman and Oswald Cobblepot's Penguin. Both were orphaned at a young age, and this film shows the different paths a character can take when met with severe trauma in their youth. Granted, Bruce had a giant mansion, a huge inheritance, and his butler and father figure Alfred to look after him, and he knows his parents were taken from him, whereas Cobblepot's parents abandoned him and he grew up in a sewer. But still, they share a trauma from their youth that shaped their lives forever, and how they cope with that trauma creates a very interesting dynamic between their two characters. Now, there are two other films that kind of take place in this franchise, but also kind of don't take place in the franchise.
7 million. Never leave the cave without it.
Now, speaking of Tim Burton, I wasn't going to talk about this, but the director of The Flash has already came out and confirmed it in an interview. We get a very special cameo in this movie by the man himself, Nicolas Cage, as Superman. We're going to do a video breaking down everything you need to know about the Superman film that never was, starring Nicolas Cage. But just so you can be prepared for this cameo before you see the movie, here's the short end of it. Back in the 90s, Tim Burton was going to direct a Superman movie called Superman Lives, starring Nicolas Cage as the Man of Steel. And like 3 weeks before they were supposed to start filming, the studio pulled the plug.
Just kidding.
But apparently the Flash film pays tribute to the Nick Cage Superman that fans have been longing to see. So if when you're watching The Flash and your friends was like, hey, was that Nicolas Cage's Superman? Now you can say,
I understood that reference.
And just a reminder, everyone, to check out Raid Call of the Arbiter, hit this QR code, or check out our link in the description below. What do you guys think? Are you excited for The Flash? Was there anything we left out of our recap? Let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter. And if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.